Hey folks, it's Gary here. Welcome back to my channel Relationship Haven. In today's story, OP found out his wife cheated on him after he noticed that she happened to be texting her affair partner during her son's birthday party. She sure does sound to have her priorities straight in life. Afterward, OP confronted her and then kicked her out. Now her life is a wreck. Let's get into today's story. Let's start off with a small recap. My wife moved out a while ago and in the meantime met and had sexual contact with other men. She claims her cheating is due to childhood trauma, for which she now wants to go to therapy for. Not sure if she's actually doing it. I have since tried to keep the contact to a minimum and only discuss things that concern the children. This has worked more or less because we still had a lot of contact, especially because of the upcoming birthday of one of our children. I felt better, but of course still had many bad thoughts about what she does or doesn't do in regards to men. During the last conversation, she assured me that she will not meet any other men anymore because she doesn't want to and she has to find out what she really wants first. I was sure that she does it anyway, but had no proof. Then was the birthday of my child. We were together with the family. She was of course also present. For me, it was super weird. I felt really uncomfortable because she portrays this happy life and speaks to me while everything is broken. I also felt that something was weird. The kid's birthday party was planned for the day after. I called her in the morning and told her I thought it would be better if she didn't come. The kids were with me that day anyway. I explained why, but she insisted on coming. The party was going well, the kids had fun and all, but I couldn't resist and then it happened. I checked her cell phone and read the messages that she was of course seeing one or two men and that they were also coming to her house and spending the night. I must say that I mentioned several times that I didn't want my children to sleep in the same bed where she was doing things with men. She agreed with me and said she didn't want that either. In an angry reaction, I told her to leave the party. When she asked why, I told her that I had read her messages. After that, it escalated a bit. She was angry because I had disregarded her privacy. I didn't care. I told her how she can be so dishonest and that she should leave. I then told her that I never wanted to see her again. She tried to justify herself with sentences like, I tried not to see him again, but I'm only human and weak, blah blah blah. It got a bit ugly in the conversation, but then she left. Later, I got a message where she admitted to sleeping with men and that she will continue to meet with one. She said she doesn't give a crap about me now and she doesn't care about my feelings anymore. She talked about how great the sex is. She also wants to report me for violating her privacy. She thinks I hacked her phone or installed some software, but I still had a fingerprint registered and said I provoked her. For me, this was the final line. I now have an appointment with a lawyer and will file for divorce. But what makes it hard is the sentence about the sex. I realized that she wrote that out of anger to hurt me, but it still knocked my confidence. Our sex life was always okay, but nothing special. I was her first and she was always rather reserved to discovering her own sexual passion and had also mentioned earlier that she liked her experience. I'm also afraid that now it will come to an ugly divorce and it will be more of a rose war, also regarding the children and the fact that they will eventually see their mother with another man. I had a conversation yesterday with my daughter, close to 10 years old, who doesn't want to be with her mother because she feels uncomfortable there. She was sad because she wants her mother to move back in. I tried to explain to her why that is not going to happen. I told her that it has nothing to do with the children, that mom still loves her, and that I love her more than anything and will always be there for her. I'm not sure how much I can tell my daughter something like she is dating other men. I think is rather wrong to say. I'm also really scared about the future and how I'll feel, how my kids will be, how long will it take me to get over my wife, etc. Update. After thinking more about the situation, I realized I wanted to limit personal contact to an absolute minimum and do only what is necessary because of the children and started to follow through. A couple of weeks ago, I had planned a ski weekend with my kids. just before we left, one of my kids started making a scene because they didn't want to clean up the room. This led to discussions and to the point that the child said they didn't want to go with me and want to stay with their mother, so I told the child to call their mother and clarify it. Of course, it wasn't an option because of work and who knows what else. I was very emotionally charged at this time because I was really looking forward to the weekend and so were the kids, and because I still blame my soon-to-be ex for the shattered situation and how my kids feel. I had talked several times with the child about how they feel, and of course, they're doing really bad with it, quite the opposite of what their mother thinks, that it must have no effect on the children. Anyway, I then took the phone because I wanted a confirmation of what is now the matter. It got a little out of hand again because I expressed to my soon-to-be ex what I think about it and why it happened. She hung up on me, and I sent her a one-line email with the words, "You can hang up, but that doesn't change the truth." The whole thing was like before an emotional act on my side. Meanwhile, I managed to let the situation cool down first and then react. This, in turn, triggered a very long answer from her, also definitely emotionally written, in which she described her truths. I will not elaborate here, but it was about what I did wrong and how I treated her wrong. Also, that she doesn't regret the affairs. One of them led to an abortion. How can you not regret that? So, again, completely trying to shift the blame and responsibility onto me. Also, and this is the critical point, she wrote, "The truth is that I don't want you in my life anymore, and I am ready to divorce you." I took the opportunity to respond to her BS and present things objectively to show her what kind of bubble she's living in, and I took the opportunity to point out to her that she's going to get a letter from my lawyer soon anyway about the divorce. I explained to her in detail and objectively why I have no more hope for us, and then came the answer, "I did not intend to divorce, but apparently you have planned and organized everything." I did not care, and I did not go further into it by replying. The fact is that she is screaming for a divorce with all her behavior and the things she says, maybe not in the illusory world that she has built up, because according to her, she thinks we would probably stay married and be a family with everything that belongs to it, but she may continue to see other men. This has shown me that she is absolutely not aware of what she has done and has not reckoned with the consequences. Presumably, she must have been shocked by my information. Since then, our contact has been almost exclusively related to the children. I have set up an app with a shared calendar and through which we can communicate child-related things. Some time passed and I was again with the children for 1.5 weeks on a ski vacation, and we had a great time. In this first week, I reckoned that she got the letter from my lawyer, since I heard nothing the whole time. On Friday, 2 weeks ago, came the expected reaction. She wrote a text message that said she had received the letter and would read everything very carefully. I could literally feel her anger. She then made a few comments about the content, which showed me that she was very emotionally charged. She probably thought at the beginning that I was just making an empty threat, and now she has seen that this is not the case. As mentioned before, I also think that she is slowly realizing that her house of cards and wishful thinking is collapsing and she has to bear the consequences herself. 3 days after she received the letter, she wrote me the following message. I will translate it roughly. I have been longing to apologize to you for everything that happened and that you had to suffer because of me and that I hurt you and that everything is destroyed. But I also want to thank you that I could grow up with you. I hope you know that I will always be there for you when you need me, and I mean it. Since we didn't make it as a couple, I would be very happy if we could be parents for the children. Thank you. What should I even think about this? What is she apologizing for? For everything? Of course, that makes it easy to not have to reflect properly so she doesn't have to deal with what she did and still hopes for forgiveness from me. She is always there for me? Thanking me for growing up? Again, obviously she hasn't learned the most important lesson, how to handle crises, and by that I mean the initial marriage crisis that probably triggered this and after which she ended up in a continuous downward spiral. She clearly wants absolution from me. I don't think she is waiting for an answer from me. I think it's more that she has now said the things she wanted to say and thinks she can now feel better about it. She also said that at one point she will now start to try to see things more positively, basically what I said to her for years, and now she's doing it as she already destroyed our family. Oh, and because of the report for abuse of privacy? She has at some point claimed that she went to the police, but she will not report me. Of course, not because she was probably told that she has nothing in hand and would only make a fool of herself. The divorce itself is initiated, but it takes between 6 to 12 months until the whole thing is through. What do you think? Should I answer or rather not? It's not about wanting to save the marriage somehow. I don't see any hope for it. Here's another update. A week ago I had written and now I need advice again. I am struggling hard and am just hurt and angry. Against my deepest desire for revenge, I have not responded to the message of my soon-to-be ex last week because of the advice here. But the whole thing just won't let me go. I am sure she is living her life right now and is happy. I am finally out of the marriage and I filed for divorce, which she probably wanted for a long time. She probably even has a new relationship already. I got my oldest child a cell phone with which the kids can call me when I'm out of the house and whatnot. On it is also the number of their mother stored, because otherwise the kids use the home phone, which is much more expensive. Now it happened that my eldest has tried to call their mother, who has not picked up. The soon-to-be ex then later sent a text message to the kids' phone asking who the number belongs to. At 10 p.m. the cell phone was called with a suppressed number and 3 minutes later from their mother. So since I don't think my ex knows how to suppress the number, she was not alone. In addition, I contacted her Saturday through the co-parenting app because she had forgotten to do something kids-related. The answer was that she could only do it on Sunday, so she was definitely spending the weekend away, probably with her new guy. I really want no contact, but it seems that there is always some info coming to me that gives reason for speculation, and I absolutely cannot handle the fact that my ex is already happily in a relationship. She has no right to it, in my opinion, while the kids and I suffer. This is killing me, and I don't know how to deal with it. I don't want this to constantly haunt me and make me feel bad because I'm triggered everywhere. I'm probably additionally so angry because I know that as a divorced male with 3 kids, it's virtually impossible to meet a woman. I know because I tried, even though I don't think I am ready. I also tried without stating that I have kids, which worked better, but sure, that won't lead to a real relationship. Of course, she has no problem finding someone. As a good-looking and naive young mother, you are certainly an easy target or fetish for some. I doubt that most of them want something serious, but just take advantage of it. How do you deal with it? How do I change my mindset and not care about her anymore? Why do I love and hate her at the same time? Opie, here are my thoughts on the situation. Your mind is still in the early stage that is confused, angry, frustrated, and sad, as well as other waves of emotions. It does not matter if she is in a relationship or not. Eventually, you will be in one as well. It seems you have not changed your ideal mental identity of her to a more accurate identity. You seem to be caught up in who you thought she was and have not come to the conclusion that that person never existed but was made up in your mind. Don't rush healing and don't date before you're ready. You taking notice that you are not and taking steps not to are a good bit of self-reflection and would be unfair to them until you are in the right headspace. Your story is a lesson about being decisive and pulling off the band-aid and not letting things drag on. You guys were separated but living together for a year. Then you fully separated after that for another 6 months before she started seeing other men. Your relationship was done for a long time, but you two dragged your feet in fully accepting it and divorcing. You need to accept that she has moved on. She doesn't want you anymore. It sucks being rejected. No one wants that. But you two were separated for 1.5 years before she had sex with others. I wish the best for you, OP, and hope you can move on soon. Get ready for a terrific story where the protagonist gracefully massacres a traitor in front of all the witnesses. He has been languishing in misery and betrayal, but now it's time for retribution. When our hero discovered his wife's treason, he decided not to leave her unpunished. Standing before the eyes of all the witnesses, he resolutely and gracefully dealt with the adulteress, putting an end to her double game. But this is only the beginning of a story where the drama of fate and treason are intertwined in a trap of revenge. Enter this dark world where the lines between truth and justice are blurred and revenge engulfs hearts like a blazing fire. What will become of the hero, immersed in this dark symphony of treason and retribution? Will he be able to overcome his anger and find true liberation, or will his own soul become a prisoner of dark passions? Reveal with us the mystery behind this amazing story of treason, revenge, and willpower. But beware, dear viewers, shocks await you that will leave a mark on your soul and make you question the nature of human nature. My story is called The Beautiful Wedding. Yes, it really is beautiful. After breaking up with a girlfriend, I had been dating for about 3 years. I of course talked for a while. But one day, in a club, I met her. Or rather, she approached me herself. A built, beautiful model. We got acquainted, talked. When we were sitting at the table, she took out her phone to call a cab. I saw a favorite in my dialed contacts. Okay, didn't ask anything. Walked her home. We met the next day and went to a movie. She told me that she lived and worked in Moscow and was leaving again soon. I said okay. I was ok with it, so we parted ways. A week later she called me and said, "I miss you and I'm coming to see you." We were at the club. That's where I went to the train station to pick her up. And then we went to a hotel. There we hung out for 3 days. We got high, ate, drank, made love. She was on fire in bed. She told me about her relationship with a guy from my city. She also had a man in the capital, a director of a construction company, as you can imagine, with all that implied. Anyway, here we go. She fell in love with me, dumped her boyfriend and her uncle with the dough. I went to see her, she came to see me. I was a 5th-year engineering student at the time, making money playing poker on the internet. My income was about 3 average salaries in an average provincial town. This is not to brag, just a fact. I have to say that she was earning much more than me many times over. One day she started talking about the time we should live together. I gladly supported her. We decided that she should leave Moscow, because I studied full-time and the distance relations were very annoying. We started a life together. And you know, friends, she was not at all afraid to live with a student, Kadala, who lives the game. She was ready to get caught up in the posh metropolitan life. Kind of like Bold Heaven and in the Chalash. Anyway, took her to our hometown. There was no limit to our happiness, and it was true. Love, idle, buzz, fairy tale, because they are relationships. And so I graduated. It is clear that to get a job was not an option, because in my field of study I got paid as much as I could win in a few days. I played, by the way, every day. Sometimes 24 hours a day, when there was a good company, and less frequently I played live. I have to admit that I dedicated the lion's share of my time to the game. And it paid off. After a couple of years I was playing very high, earning already crazy money. She understood me, sharing my wins as well as my losses. Spent time in salons, in fitness classes, with girlfriends. I didn't allow her to work either. We practically never fought, but one day she threw a tantrum about my game. I explain everything popularly, that I cannot live any other way, and besides I do not want to. I calmed her down, and a couple of days later made her a surprise. A brand new red Mercedes coupe was parked under the window of my apartment with her. She was in 7th heaven in a way. After a while we decided to get married. We had the most fucked up wedding. We started getting ready for this moment, and I think everyone now understands what that is. And it's evening. I'm at the computer undressing another spoonful, and I hear an incomprehensible conversation with her on the phone, or rather her voice. This voice I heard a few years ago, when I missed her very much. We chatted on the phone for hours on end, when we were apart. I was pushed into my chair at the same moment, my eyes darkened, the tables of cards jumbled. I was in such shock that words can't describe it. I realized that, yes, the end had crept up on me. But how? I thought, because the wedding is in a month and a half. I sat for an hour, maybe two, almost motionless, stupid, staring at the monitor. Then, going downstairs, I asked who she was talking to. She said, of course, that she was with a friend. Yeah, well, what else could she say, right? And I could see by her body movements that it was a bluff. Believe me, it's hard for a poker player to fool the average person, because my nonverbal skills were 5+. Experience in the game, plus study of psychology, you get the idea. The morning I took her car, telling her I was taking it to the service, installing a new alarm system. I put a cell phone controlled alarm in the Mercedes. Fortunately, they are now quite available and have almost every specialized service. I registered it and my number in a program. This, in turn, allowed me to call my Mercedes by dialing a certain code. I could listen to everything that was going on in the car. I was 99% aware that our attitude was total Alice, and with only a 1% chance, I could have mixed up her voice on that call yesterday. It took me a little less than a week to realize that all my doubts were confirmed. I won't bore you with how I felt. I won't. There was only one thing that stuck in my mind. How to punish the bastard. I came up with a fucking plan. Forgive her and tell her nothing. Get married and live happily ever after. But listen, don't jump to conclusions, dear listeners. And don't prematurely call me a moron, a reindeer, and so on. Let's listen to the end. So, a month before the wedding, I could not hide my emotions. She understood. Yes, she realized something was wrong. I made a reference to losing large sums of money every day. She took the bait and didn't suspect a thing. A couple weeks before the wedding, I told her I wanted to sell her Mercedes and buy something like a Cayenne. You know, a bigger one. Since my beloved is dear to me and I am all about her safety after all, it worked out very well. The car was sold in a day for a third below market. Didn't care. So, we made it to the wedding. Everything was set. Zach's. Schmucks. Best restaurant. All the relatives. All seated. Drinks. The fun began. We were, of course, at the head of the table. I waited for a moment. That's it. It's decided. It's time. Misha, brother, passed me a bottle of vodka. Buddy, what are you? A tip. You still have your wedding night ahead of you, my friend told me. I told him, as I remember now. Listen, I really need it. Nod, here you go. Then I poured myself a whole flask of vodka. Can you imagine? I get up. I take the microphone. Dear guests, I'm grateful that you all took the time to attend our wedding. And I, believe me, could not fail to prepare a gift for you. Everyone fell silent at that moment and listened to my wagon with a kind of genuine attention. I continued. I drink to you, my dears. Pour. Let's drink together. And everyone obediently drank. I, in turn, crammed a whole flask of vodka in my shaking hands. And now the surprise, as I promised. DJ, turn on that flash drive I gave you. DJ, so hurriedly and perhaps even timidly, reached into his pocket. He found the flash drive, plugged it in, and everyone froze. Next, a dialogue began to be heard. Hello, hi. Hello, Zai. Well, how are you today? Sorry, today is unlikely to work out. Why? Your asshole decided to take the day off today. Come on, can he do that? He can. He's got all the fucking money in the world to win. He's sitting upstairs in his office. I can't. I want you. Where are you now, baby? I'm on my way home from the salon. I think I should at least feed him. And he's laughing at the same time. Ah, I'm so hungry too. I could eat you. Meng, tempting. Go for it. You won't regret it. Just come in for half an hour. I miss you. Well, all right, fine. I'll be there in 15-20 minutes. You ready, naughty boy? Always ready. Baby, that's it. Come on. I'll be right there. That's it, folks. And that was the end of my story. That's why I consider it a masterpiece wedding. But a few words about how I'm doing right now. Well, right now, I'm doing great. I didn't have any more serious relationships. And not the slightest desire. As for the fiancé, I just wanted her. You can't lie like that in front of people. But I thought it was too light a punishment for her. Then I wanted to say in ZXA, no, but that's kind of womanly. You have to agree. Finally decided that a flush of shame would be just right. After the tape was over, I have to admit, things didn't go according to plan. Somebody didn't understand anything at all. It's kind of like the old guard. Some cried. Somebody screamed. What is this? A prank? Yeah, there was that too. The thing is that about 70% of the audience didn't know that I was making money playing. And the bride's voice to people unfamiliar with her was somehow, well, alien. It was just hard to make out. And to my acquaintances too, by the way. I was confused and there was nothing I could think of to say to the guests. The bride will explain everything to you now. At that moment, the very same flute of vodka, I remember it as I do now, had already begun to work. I turned to her and slipped her the microphone. She knocked it out of my hands and ran out into the street in tears. My loved ones came up to me, started hugging me and calming me down. And I said this, guys, I'm fine. My brother whispered to me, I always knew you were a monster. But what would it come to? Oh, everyone will remember your wedding all his motherfucking life. You're handsome. I told the witness to give the gifts back. I asked him to sign each gift. And he was initially aware of this outcome. The toastmaster was also aware. I asked him in advance to comfort all the guests and prepare a speech in style. Anything happens in this life and blah, blah, blah. And so it was. Everyone slowly began to leave. But my friends and I led ourselves a little coconut and flew to the brothel. So there you go. A few days later, my fiancé called me wondering when the divorce was. That's funny. We got divorced, by the way, without shackles. Quietly, peacefully. I don't know where she is now. We never saw each other again after that. And now we come to the second story. He had been betrayed, his trust broken. But now it was time for retribution. When the hero discovered his wife's betrayal, his heart was filled with rage and determination. He went into the shadows, plotting his revenge to answer for all the betrayal and deceit. But this is only the beginning of a story where the drama of fate and treason are intertwined in a dangerous game between truth and lies. Enter this dark world where revenge becomes a driving force and plans unfold with deadly precision. What trials and dangers await the hero in his journey of revenge? Will he be able to execute his plan to the end, or will he become a victim of his own rage? All the answers are hidden in the darkest corners of his soul and the unpredictability of fate. Are you ready to wade through the fog of moral dilemmas and find out what lies behind the mask of revenge? Good day to all. I first found out about her infidelity 10 years ago, exactly. I will not tell you what I experienced then, and what a hell my life turned into. The main thing, and I think the most important thing, is that I managed to pull myself together and began to think. Our son was just a baby, and I did not dare to leave him alone with her, and I was overwhelmed with feelings. I loved her until I couldn't stop thinking. No, I was not going to forgive, but I realized that the divorce was not the answer and love is transformed into something else. The opposite feeling. And then I wanted wildly to be together. Not just to go out, but to hurt and humiliate. By the way, I do not fall for women. I love communication, flirting, but intimacy for me, it is such a long-standing physiological need, or something. But in any case, not a terrible craving in pleasure, for in his youth, tried everything, or almost everything I wanted. I built and nurtured my plan for a very long time, trying to take into account all the details. The hardest thing was to pretend to be some kind of a sucker who believes in her faithfulness and love, and yet does not notice anything. And she, by the way, had been in control for a couple of years, trying to be faithful. But Gorbatov, nothing can fix that. I did not go to the left myself, I was not interested. With women, it was always easy for me, and somehow it was quite easy to get into bed. When I slept with her, I imagined that there was a girl of easy virtue underneath me, whom I was paying for. Over the years, I had managed to make some good money in a left-hand account that she didn't know about. I'd bought a place to live, so I'd done my homework. And I also made a person out of her, gave her a small business, brought her out into the world, got to know my business partners. My son grew up, he understands everything. My mother-in-law loves me even too much. All her friends and business partners are sure that I pray to her. We have an idol, and that love reigns all around us. She, on the other hand, for all this time blindly believed in my naivety, continued to go left from time to time. About a couple of years ago, I started to drift away from her. Intimacy was practically gone from our life, we were not engaged in it. From communication with her, I decided to suspend. Then quickly had an affair with the secretary of my deputy, so that she heard the rumors. There was a scandal at home, but I ended up staying clean, because it was also part of my plan. I must pay tribute to her intuition, she quickly broke up with another favorite, and began to anxiously take care of me, for a divorce would destroy her image at least. On this she could not allow anything. Then I started drooling about our love, and she calmed down, and at the same time decided to spin another novel. I had already played around and decided to take action, so she had a corporate party. I, of course, was not invited, but I made a surprise visit. Before that I already knew from her correspondence what time she was going to drive there. She was tense, but didn't show it. As planned, she stayed late. As planned, he started texting her on Viber. As planned, I took her phone from her and read the contents of their correspondence to those present. Phrases like, "I'm all burning up, but my husband came over," or "my baby's ready, send your sucker to bed, waiting for you." Stuff like that. Afterwards, I threw the phone on the floor and left. It was pathetic to look at the faces of those present. I took only my documents from the house, because my new apartment had everything I needed for my new life. Almost 2 months had passed. I call her friends, trying to comfort me. Her business partners call. They say we didn't know, and they try to assure me of their friendship. Yeah, of course I do. My son comes in, has a fight with her, wants to move in with me. Whether she calls, I don't know. Her number's blacklisted. The truth is, my son says things have not gone well for her, to put it mildly. Almost everyone has turned their back on her. And then there's the divorce, the property division. It's going to be ridiculous there. There's a lot she doesn't know. I'm doing great now. For the first time in a long time, I'm at peace. And no more revenge and pretending to be a man. Love yourself and keep a cool head. Treason cannot be forgiven, because honest women are few, but they are. And do not take my example, please. 10 years to endure it is hard. Not everyone can. And as for my wife, all that is left to do is to take away her property and livelihood. My lawyers already prepared everything. She's going to live on the street. My son will move in with me tomorrow. The matter has already been settled. That will be the end of the story. For the last 5 years, she lived well. She was a respectable lady. Now it is. Poisoned the respect of her peers, no partners left either. Believe me, I know. She doesn't own any property. Her firm is mortgaged to the hilt. I did my best. Partition and a divorce will be fun. That's where my lawyer did his best. I got her pretty high, so the fall will be very painful. And by the way, I don't expect my son to turn his back on her completely. After all, she is his mother. So far, he's taken my side. He and I have always been friends. We'll see. He is going through puberty now. Dear listeners, thank you for watching this video and for subscribing to the channel, giving your likes and dislikes, as well as for participating in the discussion of each story in the comments to the video. This helps the channel grow and attract new audiences. See you again. The night I met Sarah was like a scene straight out of a movie. A friend's party, the kind you expect to just float through, but there she was, laughing at something in the corner, her eyes catching mine across the room. Instantly, I knew I had to talk to her. The connection was electric, undeniable, and by the end of the night, we were inseparable. Months flew by, each day with Sarah better than the last. It wasn't long before we took the leap to move in together, our lives and hearts entwined in a cozy apartment that quickly felt like home. I'd never been more sure of anything when I asked her to marry me on our 2nd anniversary. Her yes, through tears of joy, was the best moment of my life. Planning our wedding became our shared project, a testament to our love. We dove into every detail with passion, wanting the day to be a reflection of us. Our families and friends, some who traveled great distances, filled the venue with warmth and excitement. It was our dream come to life. The ceremony itself was a blur of emotion, laughter, tears, and vows spoken from the depths of our hearts. It felt like we were the only 2 people in the world, promising forever to each other. But at the reception, something changed. Sarah seemed distant, her vibrant energy dimmed. I tried to brush it off as wedding day stress, telling myself she just needed a moment. Yet, as I watched her from across the room, interacting with our guests yet not quite present, a nagging feeling took hold in the pit of my stomach. I couldn't shake the sense that something was amiss, but little did I know, the night was about to take a turn that would change everything. The wedding reception was in full swing, laughter and music filling the air, yet I found myself momentarily alone at our table. That's when I noticed Sarah's phone, abandoned beside her bouquet, vibrating with a relentless string of notifications. A flicker of curiosity overcame me as I reached for it, rationalizing that it might be something urgent. Unlocking her phone, the code hadn't changed since the day we decided to share everything. I was greeted by a barrage of messages from a number not saved in her contacts. The preview snippets were enough to send a jolt of shock through me. Hesitantly, I opened the message thread, and my worst fears materialized on the screen before me. Messages, pictures, plans made and kept secret, all painting a vivid picture of betrayal with someone named Alex, dating back months before our wedding. The room spun as I tried to process what I was seeing. This had to be a mistake, a misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew it was not. With the phone still in hand, I looked up to find Sarah, her eyes meeting mine across the room. The joy that had lit her face all day vanished as she read the devastation in my expression. She rushed over, her approach hesitant, eyes welling with tears. "Please, let me explain," she pleaded, reaching for her phone. But there was no explanation needed, the evidence was clear and undeniable. Confronted with her texts, Sarah's facade crumbled. She confessed, her voice a whisper drowned out by the celebratory noise around us. Her affair with Alex, a coworker, began as a fling, she said, but it didn't end as promised. The words cut deeper with every confession, each syllable a hammer to my heart. The reception, once a blur of happiness, turned into a spectacle of our unraveling. Whispers spread like wildfire among our guests, their gazes flitting between us, laden with pity and disbelief. Sarah, in between sobs, tried to grasp at the fragments of our day, but it was too late. The damage was irrevocable. I couldn't stay, not with the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. I left the reception alone, the echo of our vows taunting me with each step. The cool night air did nothing to soothe the burn of heartbreak and betrayal as I walked away from the celebration, from our guests, from Sarah, the woman I loved, the woman who had just shattered everything. The morning after the reception felt like waking up to a nightmare, the events of the previous night replaying in my mind with a clarity I wished I could blur. My phone buzzed incessantly on the nightstand, a constant reminder of the reality I was now forced to confront. It was Sarah, her texts a mixture of apologies and pleas for a chance to explain. But what was there to explain? The betrayal was clear, the pain, all too real. I couldn't bring myself to face her, to hear her voice. So, I remained silent. As the news of our shattered vows spread, friends and family began to weigh in. Calls and messages came in waves, each one filled with concern, offering advice, mediation, anything to mend what had been broken. But trust, once shattered, couldn't be easily pieced back together. Their well-intentioned efforts felt like salt in an open wound, and I retreated further into my shell, seeking refuge and solitude. The decision to move out of our shared home was both painful and necessary. Each room, each piece of furniture, held memories of a life I thought we were building together. Packing my belongings was like sifting through the debris of our shattered dreams. I left behind a silence that echoed with the ghosts of our past, stepping out into a future uncertain and alone. Sarah's attempts to reach me didn't stop. Letters arrived, filled with apologies, confessions, and promises of change. They piled up, unopened, a physical manifestation of her guilt. But forgiveness wasn't something I could offer, not yet. Each letter, each message, was a reminder of the chasm between us, one that words alone couldn't bridge. Then, one day, Sarah took her apologies public. She showed up at my workplace, unannounced, her presence a sudden storm disrupting the calm. Her voice, laced with desperation, carried across the open space, her words aiming for reconciliation but landing as spectacle. Colleagues and strangers bore witness to our private pain, turning a personal heartbreak into public drama. I stood there, frozen, as Sarah's apology washed over me, her tears for everyone to see. But the spectacle only served to deepen the divide, her actions driving home the realization that some scars were too deep, the damage too extensive. And as she was gently escorted away, the finality of our situation settled in. There was no going back, only forward, into a future I had never envisioned, one I would have to navigate without her. The moment Sarah was escorted away from my workplace, a mix of humiliation and anger surged through me. It wasn't just our personal lives that had been thrown into chaos. Now, my professional world had been invaded by the drama. Just leave me alone, I found myself saying more firmly than I intended. The finality in my voice seemed to echo long after she had gone, marking a boundary I was unwilling to let her cross again. In the days that followed, I sought legal counsel to understand my options. Annulment or divorce, the words felt heavy, final, yet necessary. The lawyer laid out the steps, the paperwork, the proceedings. A path through the legal system that mirrored the emotional maze I was navigating. Each decision, each signature, was a step away from the life I thought I'd have. Meanwhile, the whispers of our broken marriage spread through our social circles like wildfire. Friends, acquaintances, even people I barely knew, seemed to have an opinion on Sarah's affair. It isolated her, the guilt of her actions casting a long shadow that she struggled to escape from. Yet, even in her social exile, Sarah tried to find a way back, her attempts at redemption reaching me through the grapevine of mutual friends and unsolicited updates. It was during this time that I began attending therapy. Sitting across from a stranger, I unpacked the betrayal, the anger, the loss. It was a space to voice the turmoil within, to process the grief of a future that would never be. The sessions became a refuge, a place where healing began, one candid conversation at a time. Sarah, however, didn't give up easily. She reached out through mutual friends, hoping to bridge the chasm her actions had created. But I was firm in my resolve, refusing any form of contact. It was a necessary boundary, one that I needed to maintain to protect the fragile peace I was beginning to find. The therapy sessions taught me that moving on wasn't just about distancing myself from Sarah, but also about rebuilding myself from the inside out. As days turned into weeks, I clung to this new routine, finding solace in the gradual process of healing. The legal proceedings, the therapy, the steadfast avoidance of Sarah and her attempts at reconciliation all were steps on a path leading me away from the past, toward a future uncertain but mine to shape. The session with my therapist started like any other, but today, she pushed me into uncharted waters. "It's time to confront your feelings about the affair and its impact," she said firmly, her voice a mix of compassion and resolve. I had skirted around the edges of my pain, anger, and betrayal in our previous sessions, but she was right. Avoiding these emotions had only allowed them to fester. So, with a deep breath, I dove into the heartache, articulating the sense of loss, the erosion of trust, and the shadow the affair had cast over my life. It was both liberating and excruciating, a necessary step towards healing. Meanwhile, Sarah embarked on a path of redemption, volunteering at community services. I heard about her efforts through the grapevine, a part of me acknowledging the sincerity in her attempts to make amends, even if it was too late for us. Her actions, however genuine, couldn't undo the past, but I hoped they brought her some peace. The rumor mill churned once more with news that Alex, the other man in the affair, had severed ties with Sarah shortly after our wedding fiasco. The news brought no satisfaction, only a reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the pain they can inflict. Work became my sanctuary, a place where I could lose myself in tasks and projects, distancing myself from the emotional turmoil. My dedication didn't go unnoticed, leading to a promotion that served as a bittersweet milestone. It was a success I had envisioned sharing with Sarah once, now a solitary achievement. Then, Sarah took her apologies public, posting a lengthy message on social media. She acknowledged her mistakes, expressed regret, and shared her journey towards betterment. The post went viral, drawing mixed reactions. Seeing her words laid bare for the world, I felt a complex web of emotions, surprise, a flicker of empathy, but mostly, detachment. Her public declaration marked another step in our separate journeys, hers towards redemption, mine towards closure. The promotion at work was a tangible sign of progress, a beacon of hope in a period marked by personal upheaval. It reminded me that life goes on, that growth and success are possible even in the wake of deep personal loss. As I accepted the congratulations from my colleagues, I realized I was starting to look forward to the future again, one step at a time, building a new life on my own terms. The constant barrage of Sarah's attempts to reconcile had finally begun to wane. Her messages, once frequent and desperate, now arrived less often, though each was heavy with remorse. It was through the grapevine of mutual friends that I learned Sarah had started attending therapy, a journey to confront and work through her own issues. It was a relief, in a way, to know she was seeking help, yet it did little to mend the fissures her actions had caused in my own life. In the midst of navigating my new normal, I ventured back into the social scene, testing the waters of dating. It was awkward, a series of encounters that were more about finding myself again than finding someone new. Each date was a step away from the past, an attempt to rebuild my confidence and envision a future that wasn't overshadowed by betrayal. Then, out of the blue, Sarah reached out with a request that stopped me in my tracks. She wanted to meet, one last time, to offer a formal apology. My initial instinct was to refuse, to avoid reopening wounds that were only just beginning to heal. But curiosity, and perhaps a need for closure, nudged me to accept. I wondered if this meeting could tie up the loose ends, allow us to part ways with some semblance of peace. We chose a neutral place, a quiet coffee shop where our past wouldn't overshadow the conversation. Seeing Sarah again was like stepping back in time, yet the pain that once clouded my vision had dulled. She seemed different, more grounded, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of genuine self-reflection. Sarah's apology was profound, laden with an acceptance of the hurt she had caused. She took full responsibility for her actions, not once attempting to shift the blame or make excuses. It was a stark contrast to the woman who had stood in the eye of the storm months ago. She talked about her therapy, the hard truths she had faced about herself, and her commitment to being better, not for me, but for herself. Listening to her, I realized this was the closure we both needed. It didn't erase the past, nor did it rekindle any lost feelings, but it offered a bridge to move forward, separately yet respectfully. As we parted ways, a weight lifted, not forgiveness, not yet, but an understanding, a mutual acknowledgement of our shared history and the individual paths we were now on. As Sarah's apology lingered in the air between us, I found myself at a crossroads of emotion. There was a part of me that wanted to grasp at the remnants of what we had, to believe that her profound regret could mend the shattered pieces of our life together. But reality was a harsh master. The damage inflicted was too deep, the foundation of trust eroded beyond repair. I appreciate your apology, Sarah, I said, the words heavy with the finality of our chapter. But some things can't be undone. We need to move forward, apart. The conversation that followed was pragmatic, a stark contrast to the emotionally charged exchanges that had defined the recent months. We talked logistics, the cold, hard details of entangling a life built together. It was decided, an amicable divorce was the clearest path through the wreckage. This wasn't about assigning blame anymore, it was about finding a way to heal, to rebuild from the ashes of our past. Starting the legal proceedings felt like closing the door on a chapter of my life that had once held so much promise. The process was methodical, each step a move towards finality. Our home, once a sanctuary of our love and dreams, became just another asset to be liquidated. Selling it was bittersweet, the closing of one door and the reluctant opening of another. We split the proceeds, a fair end to a partnership that had veered so far off course. The day the divorce was finalized passed without fanfare, a quiet end to a union that had started with such hope. There were no winners here, just two people walking away from the ruins of their shared dreams, each carrying their own scars and lessons. In the aftermath, I found myself at a loss. Who was I, without Sarah, without the identity of us? The answer came in the form of a journey, a solo trip abroad that I had always talked about but never taken. It was time to find myself again, to explore the world and my place within it, unencumbered by the shadow of my failed marriage. Traveling alone, I encountered landscapes and cultures that challenged and inspired me. Each new experience was a step away from the pain, a step towards healing. I met people from all walks of life, each with their own stories of loss and rebirth, and in their resilience, I found strength. This journey, intended as an escape, became a pilgrimage of self-discovery, a way to come to terms with my past and look forward to my future with a renewed sense of purpose and hope. Upon my return from a soul-searching journey abroad, the world seemed to spin a bit differently beneath my feet. The clarity and peace I found while traversing foreign landscapes gave me a fresh perspective on life, a much-needed reset after the turmoil of the past months. My social circle, once fragmented by the news of my failing marriage, gradually began to show signs of rebuilding. Friends, both old and new, reached out, their support a testament to the resilience of genuine connections. Sarah, once the center of my universe, now became a figure I would occasionally encounter in the periphery of my social outings. Our interactions, marked by polite nods or brief exchanges, were devoid of the intimacy and warmth that once defined us. It was clear we had both embarked on our separate paths to healing and self-discovery. In the midst of rekindling friendships, I discovered a new hobby that captured my imagination and energy. It was an activity I had always been curious about but never pursued, thinking it too late or irrelevant to start. This newfound passion not only filled my days with joy, but also reminded me of the endless possibilities life holds when one is open to change. Then, one day, through the grapevine that seemed to keep the remnants of our shared life connected, news of Sarah's engagement reached me. The sting of the revelation was surprisingly dull, a testament to the distance I had traveled emotionally. It was clear. She was moving on, building a life with someone new, just as I was rediscovering what made me happy, what made me whole. The finalization of our divorce came quietly, a simple end to a chapter that had consumed so much of our lives. Signing those papers was not just a legal formality but a symbolic gesture, closing the door on a painful past and stepping into a future ripe with potential. The journey I embarked upon post-divorce, filled with self-discovery, healing, and new beginnings, had led me to this moment of true independence and readiness to embrace whatever lay ahead. As I set the final document aside, the weight of the past years seemed to lift, leaving a space for new stories to be written. The chapter involving Sarah was now closed, not with bitterness or regret, but with a silent acknowledgement of our growth apart. Ready for new adventures, new connections, and a life defined on my terms, I stepped forward into a world brimming with possibility, the echoes of what was fading into a memory, a lesson learned on the winding road of life. Time was now,